G'day, ziggyD here. Path of Exile's 1.1.0 alpha tree has been released to a few people, and we ended up streaming it today, and you guys will actually be able to access it now just before the patch comes out by going to poebuilder.com. I'll link it down in the description below. But I thought in this video we'll take a look at some of the major changes that you guys need to be aware of if you're planning on doing some builds in the new 4-month leagues, as well as some of the minor changes that I find pretty interesting about the tree. So let's just sort of start off by taking a macro look at some of the overall changes. So you can see these guys listed in the notepad here to my side, and I'll sort of scroll through this as we go so you guys can refer to it as we go. So first up, most elemental damage has increased across the board. Now just some really potent examples of that. Things like the shadow area has had their elemental damage doubled, same as the elemental damage here. Things like these guys have been increased to 8% instead of 6%. Same deal across these. So lots of elemental damage buffs. Even in the this Templar area, some of these have been buffed a little bit as well. Generally it's 2% across the board, 2% buff, but for the shadow area, a huge buff. Similarly, spell damage has been buffed significantly, so you'll notice that these nodes are now a lot more in the Witch, same as in the Shadow. There's not too many nodes that have been buffed for spell damage, but overall spell damage is a little bit higher now. Elemental adaptation, so this node over here, 2% to all max resistances, has been moved between the Templar and the Witch, which kind of makes sense from a thematic standpoint, and also when we look at some of the changes to the Marauder a little bit in the future, so you'll see why that's been moved there pretty soon. Overall, crit multiplier has been reduced, so both in the number of nodes and the amount of crit multi that is available. So for example, Throat Seeker used to be many 10 nodes before a 35 or something like that crit multi node. So there's only 2 10 nodes now. This one only does 25 increased crit multi. Same over the side here with the Heart Seeker node there. And also even things like bow crit multi nodes have been nerfed. This used to be 50% crit multi, is now down to 30%. So across the board, less crit multi available from the tree. There's been a few ES buffs, such as this one here is now 12%, so more point efficient ES available from the Scion area, and some of the ES nodes around here have been buffed. Not too many changes. The ones behind CI have been buffed by 2% each as well. It's not huge changes, but just a little bit more ES around the tree for you to grab to sort of maybe bring it in line with life a little bit. Other than that, the Marauder has been completely overhauled. You won't even recognize the Marauder. It's completely different, so we'll go through that in detail. There's been statistical witch buffs across the board, mostly through spell damage, elemental damage, and a few other little changes, which we'll go through some of those. There's been some statistical shadow buffs, pretty big ones actually, and Valpact is now over here nearby Berserking. Berserking has been nerfed, just as a little side note, and Valpact has been moved up to here, so it's up in that area of the tree. You'll notice Unwavering Stance is also down the bottom now. Let's move on into the Marauder, because the Marauder is like, it was the oldest, the first planned class in Path of Exile, so it had the most dated tree, and ziggyD certainly felt that way about it. And the pathing through the Marauder sort of was a bit lackluster compared to some of the other classes. Everyone used to duck in a Marauder for the life nodes, but that has been becoming less and less popular, and the Marauder's sort of been feeling a little bit less dynamic than some of the other classes. So the Marauder has had a big overhaul. So first up, all of these nodes just here, so all of these damage nodes and things like that, these haven't changed. The pathing has changed a little bit, but the actual nodes themselves remain the same. However, when we start to go down through the life side of the Marauder tree, which I should now call the life and mitigation side of the Marauder tree, you'll notice that there's been significant changes. So firstly, we have a life and armor node here. These are all life and armor nodes, so dual life and armor nodes. And then we have more regen available in the tree, a total of 2, 0.4, 0.8, so 3.2% life regen across the Marauder area here. So more total regen, and it's optional. Instead of being forced to go through some, you now have the choice of either sticking with life and armor or going through some extra regen. So very sort of nice changes there. Warrior's Blood has actually been nerfed. It used to be 1.5% life regen, and it had a different name, but that's been changed. We now go through these armor nodes. This is the same, but there is an armor and life node here with very high armor value and 6% increased life. The crit multiplier reduction has been condensed into one node and is now 20% instead of a total of 30 across 2 nodes. And maybe this makes sense with some of the other changes to crit multi in the game, reducing the amount of crit multi across Path of Exile. These life nodes are pretty standard, Heart of the Warrior is just the same, but one of the last life nodes has been removed, so now there's only 15% total available. So now, get ready to have your mind blown by the biggest change. Oh, super zoom! Diamond Skin now has 1% to max all resists. So in addition to elemental adaptation up near the Templar, and that's why that's been moved up there, we now have diamond skin. In addition to that, prepare to have your mind blown further, we have 1% max resist on each one of these. So with the nerf to Sephel's frame, and with Righteous Fire maybe becoming a little bit more popular, these Fire Resist node and the Diamond Skin node is going to be very popular. But in general, the amount of extra mitigation Marauders can get is very nice now. Actually coming down through this way, grabbing all this stuff, getting Diamond Skin, and maybe even getting one of each of these resist nodes could actually be worth it. Like 1% max or resist, some of you more experienced players will know, is actually a very big boost in terms of defensive power. So very cool stuff there, very cool stuff. Now most of this stuff on the left side of the tree is just about the same. Some things have moved around a little bit, like Lava Lash and Blood Drinker is a little bit further north than it was before. A little bit harder for other classes to get, but easier for the Marauder to get, but nothing too major. You'll notice the Bloodless cluster has changed. The Bloodless node itself has 8%, and these are down to 8% now. So these are worse life nodes than before. They used to be 12 and 12, but now you're more encouraged to also get Bloodless, which is kind of cool. It's pretty nice to fight life leech mobs and not have them be able to leech from you. So that node should be a little bit more enticing now, but overall this sort of cluster has been nerfed a little bit. Now you'll notice that there's also these new clusters here, sort of condensing some of the previous ones. We've got By the Blade, which is fizz damage with axes and swords, and Blunt Instrument, which is fizz damage with staves and maces. So both of these are being combined. This one includes some life on the notable node here, and this one includes some armor on the notable node down there. You'll notice there's also some life and armor nodes in here as well, so plenty more Marauder themed mitigation / life, which really suits the idea of this Marauder being this just naturally like beastly and tanky character. Pretty cool stuff. Arsonist has also been changed a little bit, with 2 of these now including 4% life. Not a big change though, 4% is not too big. But this cluster down here, over by Unwavering Stance and the Aura Effect nodes, all off the one node there, which this is a bit of a theme in this patch. You'll notice that we have the Stun Mastery cluster, a new cluster. It includes Stun Threshold Reduction, Stun Recovery and Life on 2 nodes here. Stun Duration, which also has life on it. And this one here, which is Stun Threshold Reduction, Stun Duration, and Block and Stun Recovery. Very cool cluster, I think. Any sort of stun builds will be able to take advantage of this, grabbing a bit of extra life along the way as well. It's really nice. You might not be getting the Stun Recovery nodes, but you'll probably get the 8% extra life from there, as well as the really nice Stun Mastery node itself. So overall, Marauder change, very cool. It's very, you're able to now sort of path in and out of the top and bottom of the Marauder area a bit more easily, and you can sort of do things like escape from Warrior's Blood, and then come straight out into By the Blade if you want. So very cool stuff without, having to go through all the strength nodes instead. So I'm a big fan of the Marauder changes overall. So I should have had the Marauder brought up a little bit more. My bad. I also did some calculations. The old tree for the Marauder had 38% and 30 max life. The new tree has more max life, more max base life and 54%, but it's more spread out across the tree, across more nodes, and it has combined armor. So overall, I think the Marauder start is very strong now, but a little bit more point expensive, so it's a bit more of an investment, which is probably a good thing. So next up, we'll take a look at the Scion. The Scion overall has been nerfed, which is probably needed. She was pretty dominating. These are all 6% now, and this one is 10% instead of 12%. But you can get through here quicker. So classes just sort of pathing through the center now will probably just go bam, 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 and leave. You're probably going to spend less time picking up the 6% life nodes, but if you really need extra life, they are there to get. Some of the starting Scion nodes have been nerfed just by a few points each, not really big changes, but Path of the Savant, in line with the spell damage changes, has actually been buffed. Now you'll notice the same sort of fast pathing through this node, through this cluster has happened over here as well. These haven't been nerfed at all, but you can now get through there in 3 points instead of spending a few more. And same deal with the ES cluster, this one has actually been buffed with the 12% energy shield. If you're going down this way, getting 6% and 12% energy shield for 2 nodes is very efficient, so that's pretty nice sort of change there. So not too many changes to the Scion, but a few little nerfs overall make the Scion a little bit less powerful in races and a little bit less powerful in terms of early game progression. So as we said, the Witch has some statistical buffs. I'm talking spell damage increases, cast speed increases, by 1% per node. Elemental damage increases up through here. These have all been increased by a few points each. Same deal over here. All of these have been increased. Lightning damage across here has been increased. cold damage has been increased, and we also have a new life and mana node here, which is used to be a mana node by itself, is really nice, and some ES increases just sort of across the board there, so pretty nice stuff. Also, spell damage per power charge has been buffed by 1%, so very nice for any sort of power charge builds there. So moving down to the Shadow probably got the biggest buff overall in terms of just raw stats. Not changed in terms of the layout yet. I think the Shadow might be the next class to get a bit of a layout change, but the Shadow is much more powerful now. So big spell damage increase, cast speed increases, doubled elemental damage through here, and these have also been doubled. So 16% now instead of 18%, and increased elemental damages across the board there. These have also been increased. It's 20, 12%, and 12%, so much more powerful life cluster. And I believe haste has also been increased in its percent as well. So Shadow very powerful overall now. I think it's going to be a very popular choice for elemental attack-based builds, and so I'm talking like elemental crit spectral throw, maybe some like elemental lightning arrow and things like that. So maybe we'll see some more elemental bow builds. I certainly hope so. But also just for spell damages overall. So I think very nice changes to the Shadow, and you can see just these ones over here. So anyway, overall I think pretty good changes. There's quite a few little tiny changes around the board, but those are the main ones I think that'll impact your builds and maybe help you make a decision about what build you want to play in the new 4-month leagues. Anyway, hopefully you guys are looking forward to it. I know I am. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ziggyD, and thanks for watching.